Alright, so hopefully by the end of the last lessons, you have completed the installation of a VMware ESXi server and it's ready for your use at the moment. You have configured it with an IP address and we're ready to connect to it to do our work. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how you create your first virtual machine. To create your first virtual machine, first of all, you have to learn how to connect to your ESXi host that we have created. So by the end of last lesson, when we have completed the installation of the VMware ESXi server, we have got to a screen which look like this one showing on the slide. It show here, notice the IP address. This is actually the IP address of our ESXi server. So that's what the IP that we're going to connect to. Just in case you forgot what IP you used to configure that machine or use DSCP, you always could come back to the screen and figure out the IP it is, the IP you have used. As well, this URL here, we could use it to download the vSphere client, which is we're going to do in a few minutes. Something to mention, while accessing the physical box itself, the ESXi physical box itself, you're not going to be able to see what's running inside the virtual machines. Like you don't have an access to the console of the virtual machines running into it. To do that, actually, you have to do it through a different machine where you have installed the vSphere client, which we're going to do in a minute. Alright, so the vSphere client is the de facto management tool for your VMware ESXi servers. So to manage the VMware ESXi server that we have installed in the last lesson, we're going to have our laptop or a PC where you install the VMware vSphere client into it and connect through the network through the IP that we have seen in the previous screen to the ESXi host. Then as soon as we connect to it, we can start configuring remotely the ESXi host. As well, we can start creating virtual machines. We can as well display the console of these virtual machines, as well go ahead and install an operating system into it. In this lesson as well, so the task we want to achieve, we're going to end up connecting to the ESXi host we created in the last lesson through the vSphere client. After installing the vSphere client, we're going to create a virtual machine. I'm going to show you how to install an operating system into that virtual machine to get your virtual machine ready for your application and to get a use of it. Then I'm going to show you actually what the reality of a virtual machine, where that virtual machine is living and where it's running, and what really it is. Alright, so let's get started. So if you remember, if you look at this screen, the URL to access my vSphere client or to download it. So let's get to that URL. 192.168.2.211. As soon as I get to this URL, as you can see here, it prompts me to actually download the vSphere client. As I don't have the vSphere client in this machine, I'm going to go ahead and start the download. And I could save it. Actually, as to speed up the demo here and the learning, I have already downloaded the vSphere client. So let's go ahead and start the installation. Alright, so extracting the vSphere client, as you can see. Alright, so it prompts me to choose the language I want to use. I'm going to use English, United States. Hit OK. Alright, so hit next at the welcome screen. Accept the license agreement. Hit next. Again, accept the license agreement. Next. Choose where I want to install my client. I'm just going to leave it to the default folder. Prompt me to begin the installation. Just hit install. Alright, so the installation of the vSphere client is completed. All you have to do is just hit finish. Alright, so by now the VMware vSphere client have been installed and ready to be used. So, and it have created a shortcut into your desktop. So as you can see by double clicking it, here it asks me for the login information and the IP to connect to the ESXi host. So this IP is actually the IP we have entered during the installation of the ESXi. The username will be root. The password is the same password we have entered during the ESXi installation. So log in. Alright, so this message is basically telling me that this is using an evaluation license, which came up with all the features for 60 days. If you have actually a license key and that you want to enter, I'll show you now how to do it. For the purpose of this demo and lab, I'm just going to use the evaluation trial license. Alright, so if you want to actually enter the license, you have to do choose the host, go to the configuration tab, hit license features, then edit in the right corner. Then as you see here, you hit assign a new license key, then hit enter key. Now you enter your key in there, you would hit OK after that. As I mentioned, I'm not gonna do that, but if you have the license key, you may as well go ahead and enter it. Alright, here at the summary tab, you could see as well the specs of the host, of the VMware ESXi host that we're using. So if you look here, it's have a 4 virtual CPUs, and that's referring to the cores. Each of them is 3.4 gigahertz of CPU speed. As well, it shows that I have about 16 GB of RAM on this machine as well. As well, show you how much utilization of CPU memory I'm doing. So if you notice, like it's using very low amount of gigahertz. It's like 193 megahertz of CPU and about a GB of RAM, as I'm not running anything there yet. So let's start by creating our new virtual machine in here. All you have to do to create a virtual machine, right click the host. Hit the new virtual machine. Now you get the option to do typical or custom. I like to do custom, as the typical one does not give you the option to choose how much memory and CPU you're gonna add in there. The typical one usually utilize the minimum required for the operating system, so I'm gonna use custom in here, as I like to choose my particular CPU and memory. I'm gonna give my virtual machine a name, so let's call it VT.2K8 R2. Then hit next. Here I choose the data store I want to install the virtual machine. I want to create the virtual machine on. As this servers only have the local hard disk, a local SATA drive, that's the local data store. This could be actually, I could have a data store coming from storage like Fiber Channel, NAS, or iSCSI as well. But here in this particular case, we only have the local disk, and we're gonna just choose that. So choose that and hit next. Here you choose the hardware version. So I'd use the hardware version 8, so I could get all the capabilities that's this vSphere version could offer. The earlier two versions are still there only because of compatibility with earlier versions. So if you still have some ESXi host running version 7 and you still want to use, then you probably version 4, then 4.1, you want to go to version 7. If you have some ESXi running 3.5, then you go with 4. But as we're using vSphere 5.1, we're going to go with version 8. The next screen here is actually choosing the operating system that you want to install. So I'm going to use Windows, then Windows 2008 R2 64-bit. It's important to choose the right operating system because that's will get the VMware 6i to create the best hardware for it. On this screen as well, we choose how many sockets we're gonna have, how many virtual CPU the machine will have, and how many virtual core it will have. So I'm gonna choose 1 and 1, and we'll hit next. Here I choose how many GB of RAM I have, so I'm gonna choose 4. And we'll hit next. Here I choose how many network card and what type of networks card. I'm gonna just use the default for now and use one network card in there and hit next. I'm gonna just use the default SCSI controller, LSI Logic SAS for Windows 2008. I'll hit next, then I'll create a new virtual machine, virtual disk, as I don't have an existing disk, so it's basically creating a new virtual disk for me, where I'm gonna install my Windows 2008 R2, and I hit next. Here I choose the disk size, so I'm going to choose 40 GB and I'm going to use the default type, thick provision lazy zeroed. Later on, I'm going to, in a different lesson, we're going to explain what the different types and how they work. For now, let's just stick with the thick provision lazy zeroed, which is the default. Next here, you choose which kind of virtual SCSI controller, then you hit next, and this will complete the creation of a virtual machine. As you see at the bottom, the progress bar for the installation. Now, to power it on, all you have to do is right click the virtual machine that have been created. Choose power on. That will power on the virtual machine itself. Okay, so to set up the machine, you'll have to do open console. Now we choose the CD. As you can see, it's just booting as a normal machine, and then we will choose the CD we want to install from. So I'm gonna just use an ISO image of a Windows 2008 that's sitting directly in my machine. It's a normal Windows 2008 R2 ISO image. There is nothing special about it. It's the same one you would use to install a physical Windows box. Download actually from Microsoft TechNet directly. So we're gonna have to restart the guest OS now to boot from the CD. So I do that by getting to the VM menu. Then guest, then send Control Alt Delete. You could actually done that through the keyboard as well by doing Control Alt Insert rather than Alt and Delete, because if you do Control Alt Delete, you're gonna restart your machine, or you're gonna get the task manager at least. So you could done Control Alt Insert in your machine and inside your VM, and that's where you reboot the VM itself. So now Windows 2008 is installing just as you would done with any physical box. As you see, the installation is exactly the same. So installation is just progressing here. Alright, so while the Windows 2008 is loading, I want to see actually where that virtual machine is living. So if you go to the data store, browse into it. So this is our local hard disk, we're just browsing into it. You see the folder, which have the same name of the virtual machine that have been created as we created the VM. And if we browse inside of it, you see the files which making up that virtual machine. So that virtual machine is nothing but these files. So the virtual machine itself reside always in the storage, being local or could be on a SAN storage or a NAS. So the virtual machine itself is nothing but a bunch of files, as you can see. And these files are just being executed on the server itself using the resources of CPU and memory, but they always reside in the storage itself. As well, a few main files that you're probably going to see here. You see the VMDK file itself. That's actually where your disk, where your data going to be going to. Your VMX is actually your configuration file. Your NVRAM is it's a virtual BIOS. Then you got your log files, and you got the VMSD, your swap file, your VSWP, which is your swap file. So actually, if you another thing which is nice about virtual machines, they actually totally encapsulated within these files. So if I actually wanted to move this machine to somewhere else, I could just take these files, copy them into another ESXi, and just add them there and power them on. The VMX file as well, we forgot to mention what it's doing. The VMX file is the configuration file. That's where you have the specs for the VM is being decided. For example, your memory specs, your CPU specs, and so on. What type of network card, how many network card, how many virtual disk is there, and where these virtual disks are. So all that configuration is in the VMX file. Being encapsulated as well into files that have actually made it much easier to move VMs around than what you had with the day of the physical servers. So all you have to do to move the VM with its hardware and everything in it is to move these files around. So and that's have allowed actually a lot of the magic of the advanced features in VMware that we're gonna talk about in later lessons. Alright, so here continuing the installation of the Windows 2008 just as you would done with any Windows, any physical server. So we just hit install. I'm gonna just choose the normal standard Windows 2008 R2. We'll hit next. Accept the license agreement. Hit next. I'm gonna do a new installation. So custom. Here I'm gonna choose the hard disk that we created, 40 GB, which match with what we created when we created the virtual machine, as if you remember. Next, now it's just doing the process for the installation. So that's the Windows 2008 is currently installing, just as it would do on any physical box. Alright, so while Windows 2008 is continuing installation, so let's create an Ubuntu VM, just a Linux VM on the side of it, run the side of it just to see the process and how they run next to each other. So repeating the same process we did for creating the Windows machine, we're gonna create another machine for Ubuntu. We're gonna put it in the same disk. I'm gonna create a Linux machine as well. I'm gonna choose the right OS, which is Ubuntu here, 64-bit. I'll hit next. I'm gonna choose one single network adapter. Gonna create a hard disk of 30 GB, and we'll hit next. Right, so now it's creating the Ubuntu machine, Ubuntu virtual machine. As you see, now I have two machines running on the same host. I could power it on. So now we have cut this physical box so far into two virtual machines. One is running Ubuntu and one is running Windows, and both of them is running next to each other. So as well, we'll proceed and show you how we could run the installation of both of them as well, side by side. So we'll repeat the same steps of just attaching the Ubuntu CD to this VM. And now we'll reboot the guest OS of this VM by going to the guest, send Control Alt Delete. And as you can see, Ubuntu is being installed in this machine, while Windows 2008 is still being installed on the other machine. So now both of these machines are running on the same physical box simultaneously. So as you can see, that's the concept of virtualization, right? I could actually had another probably 10 VMs like that running on the same host. So rather than in the old days where I had to go and buy 10 boxes to install these different OSs with different application on them, I could put all of them on one physical box and chop it into multiple virtual machines, as you see. So Ubuntu is installing in here. The Windows still installing. So going to the summary here, you can see what the specs being assigned to each VM, just as we assigned it. As well on the side here, you could see how much resources it's using. So that VM is actually using only 67 megahertz of CPU and about 1.5 gig of active memory. So that's much lower than what they have in the box. So imagine wasting a full CPU for just 47 megahertz of CPU. And this Windows machine, this Ubuntu machine as well, it's running as well 427 megahertz, which is nothing. So imagine wasting an 8 or 10 gigahertz of CPU box for just this virtual machine, right? So that's what you did in the earlier day before virtualization. You actually were creating this single OS instance that only required a very little of CPU power, and you gave it a full machine. So now you could chop that powerful machine into multiple VMs and run multiple applications on it, saving a huge sum of money and space and power and cooling for it. Here you can see as well the performance chart. So in this chart here, I could see what's the CPU utilization I am doing of the virtual machine, of that particular Ubuntu Linux virtual machine. As well, I could see many other characteristics of the VM and how it's performing. So memory, for example. Now I can see the performance chart for memory of that machine. These performance metrics could help as well always figure out if you have any performance problem with the VM. So as you see here, my Windows installation is still proceeding, and the Ubuntu box installation is going side by side with the Windows installation. So although they look as they're running in totally separated physical boxes, they actually running in the same box. It just they have each of them is running in a different virtual machine. For the operating system, which is running into these virtual machines, it's have its own dedicated physical box with its own resources. For example, that Windows machine it's have a physical box of one CPU and 4 gigabyte of RAM. It doesn't know anything about how much resources the host itself have. Here, let's continue with the installation of Ubuntu. And just as you would do on any physical machine, you just choose the specs, and here it's asking, just confirming that I'm meeting the requirement for Ubuntu installation, and hit continue. Here to want to confirm if I want to format the disk, that's fine, hit install. Choosing the time zone I want for the Ubuntu. So let me see if I could pinpoint Canada on the map here. Alright, Montreal will do. Let's continue. If you're not familiar with Ubuntu Linux and so on, it's alright. I mean, this is just to show you a demo and so on. It's like you don't really have to understand Linux to know how to use vSphere. I'm just showing here an example to show you how you can run a totally different operating system side by side. Here I'm filling the information for completing the installation of Ubuntu as well. And while this Ubuntu continue installing, as you see, Windows 2008 R2 is still installing on the side as well. On the same box here, I could actually probably created another 10 VMs of the same specs that I have created, which would make me running 10 systems at the same time after a single box. So replacing 10 physical boxes with a single physical box. So as you see on the left side, Ubuntu have finished installing and it's ready for me to restart the box. Where Windows is still proceeding, but it's almost done. Alright, so Windows is rebooting itself now. Well, Windows is rebooting as well, just as a physical box reboot, as you can see on the screen. So these consoles, you can think of it as equivalent as iDrag in Dell or ILOS in HP, so you can see the machine while they're booting. So Windows is booting for the first time and it's just completing the installation now. Finalizing the last step. Right, so your Windows boxes should be rebooting for now, so it hopefully it will allow us for the first login in a second. So Windows machine is booting and it's logging in for the first time. We're gonna reboot the Ubuntu box as well, so it will be ready for us to use. Here, Windows machine as normal, it will ask for to change the password at the first login, so we'll do that. We'll enter my desired password for this Windows box, just as I would done with any physical box. So as you see, my Windows 2008 just look like as any physical installation. If Windows 2008, there is not much difference between the two. So I could use it just as I would have a physical box with Windows 2008 on it. So it's up and running, ready for me to use. So I'll while the Windows 10 8 is ready for us to use, we only missing the VMware tools, which is like you can think of it more for drivers. So it like should it's something like actually it's you can think of it as like the earlier hardware vendor CD which they used to give you to run after installing the Windows on the host to insert all the drivers. So it will insert all the drivers and optimize the operating system. For use within the virtualized environment, though it doesn't change anything within the operating system itself. It just insert and optimize drivers. So as you can see, after getting the VMware tools from under the VM menu, now it's actually showing up as a CD-ROM. I could just double click it and start the installation of the VMware tools itself. A few things that's actually the VMware tools help improve dramatically is the screen resolution as well. The mouse movement. It will be much mouse movement is much smoother after installing the VMware tool. Right, so as we see here in the as well, the Ubuntu box was still waiting for us to hit enter, so it reboot, so we can use it for the first time. So we will actually go ahead and reboot the machine. So we'll disconnect the ISO image as well, so it doesn't install. Restart the installation process as well. So then we reboot the machine itself. So let's reboot the machine now. Alright, so my VMware tools have finished the installation, and now as soon as it has finished, it will ask me to restart the machine. So I will hit yes to restart the machine to install the VMware tools. I'm logging in as well to the Ubuntu machine on the side. As you can see, it looks just as you would run Ubuntu in a physical box as well. So you have a fully unmodified Ubuntu machine that I could easily use if I wanted to. You could run, like for example, whatever application you need on it, like if you were to run an Apache server for your web. My Windows machine is coming back now. You would notice the graphic is a bit better after the VMware tools. As well, I could feel the mouse movement is much better and smoother now. I don't have to drag the mouse around just like before installing the tools, so which is quite neat. So now your Windows 2008 is all ready for you to use. You can use it to install your SharePoint or whatever application you desire, just as you would done it in the physical world. You can actually, if you notice here, whenever I put the uh, full screen, it's not going to first screen. I could actually change that by changing the resolution. You just want to make sure the resolution that you use could support the size of screen that you want it to display in. So as you can see here, I could just change it, and the higher the resolution, the bigger screen that you can run it on. So here, just a sample that just got a bit bigger. I could even get it much bigger to fill the full screen as well. As you see, with this resolution, it's filling the whole screen now. So it's all about how do you like it, and how big is your screen, and what kind of resolution you'd rather to use. For me, I like usually to keep it a bit smaller resolution, so I could move the VM's console across and have multiple of them side by side. Another thing to notice, like usually you don't use the console after you finish the installation. It's only used usually for the installation process. So it's just the same way you use your iDrag or iLOS. So you actually do the installation through it after you install Windows and it's the application, the OS is ready. You can enable remote desktop and you always could access this virtual machine through remote desktop. The only other reason that you might have to come back and start using the console if you have some VMs that you decided you're going to get them isolated. So there is no network access to them beside having the console to them. So the console you could actually use the console without having connectivity, having network connectivity to the OS of this virtual machine. So as you can see, both machines are running in parallel, side by side. So simultaneously, so you have both Windows and Ubuntu running next to each other. I could add another Windows 7 machine as well running in there, or Red Hat machine, or Sun Solaris for Intel, all running next to each other if I needed to. Alright, so if you go back to the data store, just like we did originally, if you notice now, my Ubuntu machine was added there. Same type of files as well. If I wanted to move it to another ESXi host, all I have to do is take these files, moving to wherever, to whatever host I need them to run into. Okay, so on the summary, what you should have learned by the end of this lesson. So you should know by now that the vSphere client is the de facto method to manage your ESXi host. So really managing or all the tasks for management that you need to do, or creating VMs, deleting VMs, and so on, is done through the vSphere client. You don't really have to go to the console of the ESXi host screen itself unless for support purposes and troubleshooting. I would say 99.9% of all the tasks I do with the vSphere is usually done through the vSphere client. As well, you should have noticed by now and learned that the virtual machine is nothing but a set of files that's actually sitting on a storage somewhere. That storage could be local or remote to the ESXi host itself. They utilize the ESXi host resources like CPU and memory to run, but they always residing on the disk. Virtual machine, the last thing, virtual machine encapsulation is the secret sauce behind many of the magical virtual infrastructure capabilities. So, being able to encapsulate these virtual machine into a set of files and nothing but a set of files make moving these VMs much easier for availability purposes and disaster recovery purposes. As well, just the flexibility it gave you into being able to move the VM as needed is way different than what you had in the physical world. So moving a Windows OS with an application from a physical box to another box was a lot of work in the physical world, but when it comes to virtualization, it's all just about getting these files and uploading it to the next host. Even if have a different hardware, then you can put them up. Something nice as well about virtualization in VMware, that you don't have to modify the OS, you don't have to modify the application, they run as they are. As well, the encapsulation itself and the anatomy and isolation of these VMs from each other's ensure that's none of the VMs affect each other's. So as you have seen, I have run Windows in one box, Ubuntu in the other box, and they're not aware of each other's, and they have totally different OS, and they might have different applications.